Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters, and welcome to Albayan Live. I'm your host, Abu Abdurrahman. I'm very pleased to be joined by my dear beloved brother, Sheikh Nassim. Abdi, assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
You like the introductions, don't you?
Yes, it's you don't know what to expect. So for those that don't know, again, as always, for those that don't know why we're laughing always at the beginning of the show, it's because there's few minutes before the show, there's a lot that happens, and sometimes you need to quickly go into professional mode, and sometimes it gets a little bit delayed. Alhamdulillah.
As we're learning with this new technology, sometimes we get caught off guard. Even though our tech team does an amazing job, but sometimes you get caught off guard and you're live and you don't actually realize it till you play back the video later on. And you're actually live for 30, 40 seconds. Allahu A'lam what you said and didn't say. So that's why we're having the giggle at the start. I think we've almost perfected it. We're getting there. Inshallah, soon we'll be professionals.
A lot of the online learning, a lot of the online teaching, some of the things that have happened, extreme things that have ended up in the news are, from one perspective, absolutely hilarious, and on another perspective are like life-threatening for some people.
Yes, it's good.
And
it's good.
Problems.
It's good you mentioned that because it leads us to our topic tonight, which is part of the series Memorable Experiences While Seeking Knowledge. Today we're going to concentrate mainly on studying online or online study. We'd like to welcome all our viewers, all our listeners. If you haven't subscribed to the Albayan Radio YouTube channel, please subscribe, and welcome to our viewers on Facebook Live, ASWJ Australia, and also listening on our apps and Wi-Fi devices. Let's get straight into it, Sheikh Nassim. Studying online. I know you've done some time online. How did you go with that, and how did it start, and how did it begin?
طيب بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أما بعد. Regarding online learning, we mentioned previously when I was coming back from Egypt and there's trips in between and me still not knowing what I was doing regarding returning back overseas. So I had started private lessons with some mashaykh as alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, the opportunity was available, and I was able to benefit my time with them when I was there, and also when I was back. I said I'm not going to become lazy with it. But then when I knew I wasn't going to continue studying overseas, and this was after Saudi. So after I had returned back from Saudi, knowing that khalas, I'm not going to be able to get my family there, and so I'm not going back there because of the difficulties. I knew I needed to turn my focus to online learning, and I wanted it to be something academic, because if you want to go up in levels, you want to do your masters, you want to do your doctorate, inshallah, in the future, obviously you need to have all of your qualifications there. So one of the universities that is very popular amongst the students of knowledge is the Medina International Online University, and it's almost the same curriculum as Medina University, the older curriculum, and it's through Malaysia. So it's a Saudi university through Malaysia. Alhamdulillah, a lot of brothers have really benefited from it. A lot of brothers I know have graduated from it. They've done masters from it. I know a lot of mashaykh, etc. overseas. They benefited from the university. So it was a very easy choice for me. I already had some friends in there who, mashallah, now they've graduated. Some I know done masters, etc. So it was a safe option. And alhamdulillah, I went into that. So that was right after I went to Saudi. I'm still in there now. Unfortunately, the last 2 semesters of the bachelor's, they got a little bit delayed, but alhamdulillah, there's only 2 subjects left. Inshallah, once I finish them, then inshallah I can move on to bigger and better things. Inshallah. So that's how
you graduate. So you'll be graduating with the bachelor's, is that right? That's normally takes 4 years.
Yeah, it's this what I'm in now is the bachelor's of Islamic studies, and the specialty is fiqh and usul al-fiqh. Inshallah, once I do that, I finish the bachelor's, inshallah, then I can move on to higher up studies, inshallah.
Why have you there before moving on? Just quickly, how much faculties does it actually have there? Departments or certain fields?
There's numerous. Off the top of my head, you got fiqh and usul al-fiqh. These are just Islamic studies. So you've got other academic studies, you've got like psychology and IT and these types of things also there, but from the Islamic studies, You've got fiqh usul al-fiqh. You have, that's one faculty. You have faculty of hadith. You got a faculty of da'wah. So these are just off the top of my head, and I know that there's more. Quran is another one. These are the broad faculties. The masters, it gets more specific, but off the top of my head, I can think of them right now. Then you got Arabic. Arabic is a little bit of the ones that are in between because it's a language based study,
Yes.
but you also have many Islamic components in it. So they look at it a little bit like Arabic and Islamic studies. So that's a fifth faculty. There's plenty for someone who wants those options. You can definitely really specialize in some beautiful things. Like for those that don't know, like fiqh, usul al-fiqh obviously focuses a lot more on the jurisprudence, the halal, the haram, the Islamic rulings, how to come to a ruling, how to know the difference of opinion, how to know the stronger opinion, how to reply back to certain people that try and play around with rulings on the Sharia. Then you have things that are associated with it, like السياسة الشرعية, like Islamic legislative systems. But the main focus. Then you've got obviously your normal studies. You do have a bit of tafsir. You have aqidah. You do have a bit of hadith. You do have a bit of seerah. So they do mix things into it. It's a Kulliyat al-Sharia is quite broad, but the main focus is fiqh and usul al-fiqh. If you go to hadith, you also study aqidah. You also study hadith. You also study. So if you get to hadith, you study aqidah. You study a bit of fiqh. You study a little bit of tafsir, etc. You're going to study a bit of things, but the main focus will be hadith and the history of hadith, and the compilation of hadith, and the study of men, ilm al-rijal, the study of biographies, who's authentic, who's not authentic, and why, and chains of narrations, etc. Arabic, you're obviously going to be studying a lot more of Arabic language. When it comes to Kulliyat al-Quran, you're going to be looking at different recitations, the history of the writing of the Mus'haf, like a lot more. Every faculty is, you study broad things, but then you study also something which is specializing in that particular field. So whoever's interested, even if you were to go and study in person, then you'd want to enroll in the faculty that you're interested in. Because if you're not interested in Arabic language, then with all due respect, you're not going to want to study something which you have to spend a lot of time studying, a lot of even theoretic stuff in Arabic language. So if that's not your forte, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle in passing.
Or you can try. With my experiences, I remember many years ago, I'm not too sure how long ago, Zad Academy came out, and they were offering 2-year courses fully online. And the first batch will do it live with the mashayikh online through their site and YouTube and the like. And basically, you study 7 topics. I think it's tafsir Quran, lugha, aqidah, seerah, fiqh, hadith, and I think adab, if I got that right. So 7 topics over 2 years, and you do exams and the like. And they break it over, I think, over 4 semesters, 2 semesters a year. And it was quite good, quite beneficial. You graduate, you get I think it's a 2-year, I don't know if they call it diploma or whatever it was. And why I like that is that it gives you, will show you what you enjoy more or less. So if you do like more the aqidah, da'wah side, or the fiqh, and I don't think they offered usul, which is probably the only downfall I found, but they do offer it during the fiqh, but not as detailed. So courses like this, I found, although it's online, and obviously it's always preferable to be live with mashayikh in the masjid, or at least online with the mashayikh. This should give you an idea to see, your level as well, and what you'd like to do in the future. It is a good course, and I think that they're still offered. And the best thing about this, Sheikh Nassim, before you tell us what fees it involves, it's actually absolutely free. I don't know if it still is, but it was.
There's one of the things that we spoke about when we were speaking about the Arabic language and the benefits of learning Arabic is that, alhamdulillah, you have so much that's available to you in the Arabic language from all around the world, and it's almost nothing except that you'll find it. if you want to specialize in hadith, you find a full-on course in hadith. If you want a diploma, then you find that. If you want something easy, like just a one course online, you'll find it. But if you don't have the Arabic language, you really struggle. And we mentioned this when we spoke about it, how much of a blessing the Arabic language was. And alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, we were able to leave, even though we weren't able to continue, but we were able to leave with the Arabic language, at least a decent understanding of it, so that we, these doors were open to us. So for those that are looking for these things in the Arabic language, and I'm shocking, I have absolutely no idea about what's out there, unfortunately, in the Arabic language in terms of online learning, etc. So I'm talking to you mainly from an Arabic perspective. But for those that have the Arabic language or want to get into these types of studies, where these types of opportunities are there, and we advise obviously focus on the Arabic language, really try and benefit with the Arabic language, because even if you're stuck in Australia, which is our situation, and that was our reality, and that was unfortunately why we had to come back. If you're in that situation, then you have these opportunities. And you speak about Zed, and I know a few brothers that have really benefited from Zed, and you're 100% correct when you say it's an opportunity for you to say, okay, what did I like? How did I benefit from it? Is it something that I want to pursue in Australia, da'wah wise? And if it is, well, okay, now I can take it to another level. Even though the level that you're leaving with from Zed is a decent level, but now if I want to specialize in something, I have the opportunity. And for someone who doesn't have that background knowledge, definitely would advise him with I'm talking about yourself. I'm saying if someone was to come and say, okay, should I straight away get into something like a university or get into something like a little bit more broad, you definitely advise something a little like Zed, for him to find his feet. Because if you jump straight in, and we'll get to it inshallah, if you jump straight into something like the bachelors that we're doing, a lot of people will lose their way and they won't enjoy it, because it's too much information, and it's not enjoyable the way it's gone about, and so they'll lose. But if they go to something like Zed, which is an option, and there are many even easier options than Zed, then inshallah that'll be a stepping stone for them, where they're able to benefit, they're able to get knowledge, a very good amount of knowledge, and then say, okay, I want to specialize now in this, and then they're able to pursue that inshallah.
Yeah, you mentioned important.
Sorry,
go ahead.
You mentioned fees. Again, before I get into how much the university is, this is part of the blessing, again, of having all of those options, that you find different varieties. If you are able to afford, a higher end payment, then alhamdulillah, you can enroll in that. But if you can't afford, or you don't want to for some reason, and you want something for free, well, there's plenty that is for free also. So it usually varies on what you're able to do. As for fees and how much I paid or pay, it's approximately $1,000 a semester. So that's full time. It's in Malaysia, so you're paying in ringgits, but in terms of Australian dollars, it works out to be approximately $1,000 a semester, and that's for full-time study. And so you break that down over.
What are the lessons you're taking a week there?
The format of this particular university is that, and there are many universities also have the same sort of format, is that if you're enrolled in a particular subject, you have one online lesson, like a live lesson with the teacher, and then you have a lot of reading to do, and then either every week or every fortnight, depending on how it's set up, every week or every fortnight, you have that lesson with the teacher who gives you sort of that summarized overview of what you're meant to be studying, what you're meant to be reading, and then if you have any questions, they come in the next lesson. So that's sort of the mode of study. One live lesson every 1 or 2 weeks, then a whole lot of reading on yourself, and then you're able to go and ask questions. One of the ways of communication is like everything these days, WhatsApp or Telegram or one of the apps, where you're able to have a direct communication and contact with your teacher, and if you are really, mashallah, keen, you can benefit a lot from that personal contact with the teacher, because you can message them, and they're quite prompt, mashallah, in replying and answering questions and in breaking down matters for you. Or if you wanted in the next lesson, you could also ask them at that time, or email, etc. But there's a lot of reading on yourself. There's a lot of reading, and if we take this one, and this is just because it's next to me. So السياسة الشرعية. So this is one of the Islamic legislative course. You're looking at over 400 pages, and those 400 pages you are meant to do in one semester. One semester is approximately 4.5 months. So 4.5 months is how many weeks? 4 times 4, 16. So let's just say about 16 weeks. Let's just say, okay.
Sheikh Nassim, do they have their own books, or they have books of the ulama, or what is it?
Yeah, this is an example of one of the textbooks. I've got two screens in front of me. So this is an example of one of the textbooks, and it's usually based on another book. So it's usually based on another book, but like mashallah, it's like really broad. It's really broad. So you've got, for example, the fiqh component. It's based on Bidayat al-Mujtahid. Okay.
نعم.
So for Ibn al-Arabi, it's based on Bidayat al-Mujtahid. But
for Ibn Rushd,
it doesn't. Ibn Rushd, Jazakallah khairan. It's based on it, but then they expand on it. So you find they'll bring all of the masail from one particular text, but then they really expand on it and really bring a lot of khilaf, etc., difference of opinion. That usually, sometimes for a smaller book, they'll compile a few things. So it's usually based on one, but then they really expand on it. So if you have a book like that, 400 pages over 16 weeks, you can imagine how much reading is on you. You have to do a lot of reading, and that's just for one subject. So if it's one subject, it's manageable. But then if it's 2, 3, 4, sometimes if you're really excited and you get something more, it's not easy. And some require a lot more study than others. But if you don't manage your time well, you can really fall behind, because you're not going to get
the exams.
Our exams are different. They've changed from the beginning of my studies to now. From the beginning, there was a lot of multiple choice answers plus some long answer questions. Sort of, but not massive essays. And a little bit more like a few paragraphs, you would say. They moved away from that style, which was much easier. Now, the past few years has been 2 or 3 long questions. And the problem with those 2 or 3 long answer questions is that you can imagine if I have a 400-page book and I choose 3 questions from there, how strong and good do you need to be in the book in order for you to be able to answer those questions? So that's a problem. And the exams became much harder. Especially, they flipped it in my later subjects. So when the subjects got harder, they made the exams harder. Jazakallah khairan. And so it really, for some subjects, it was a real problem, because if you've memorized 390 pages of the book, and one of those questions comes from one of those pages that you didn't memorize, and when I say memorize, I'm not saying I memorized the whole book. Abadan. Okay, there's no question about that. I didn't. Okay, but if you hypothetically memorize all of that, and then one of the questions was from one of those pages that either you forgot or you didn't memorize or you didn't prepare for, whatever it was, you are gone. That's a third, if not half, of your marks gone. So it's a scary part regarding the exams, and that's why it's quite hard. And so for some people, it's not an easy thing to do, especially if you're not going to be able to have the time to dedicate to reading and understanding properly and revising with your teacher or your peers, or you're not going to be able to, or you don't have that background knowledge. So that's another thing that we'll talk about, inshallah.
Yeah,
so the exams are good. There's the they call it mid semester work, or semester works throughout the year. You have assignments to do. You have a few quizzes. You have some forums that you need to participate in. So it's there's a lot. It's like it's a normal university. It's a normal university that you have to do some work for.
Sheikh Nassim, what are the main differences you found between online study and with the mashayikh or physically in the university and the like?
طبعا, the biggest and clearest difference that I found was the tarbiyah. So when you're in the masjid, you dress a certain way, you sit a certain way, you listen to the sheikh a certain way, you build a connection with the sheikh, you get tips because the sheikh has time to expand. So he may be talking about one thing, but then he goes off into other related fields because he's got time to. In the masjid, you have as the sheikh, yani, you have the control is to say, do I want this to be very short and minimal, or do I want to expand? You can't do that in the university. So what ends up happening is, one, you don't have that connection with the sheikh because it's once every fortnight. Two, you don't see the sheikh, and if you do see him, he's behind the screen. Three, he doesn't see you, so it's problematic because you could be in your pajamas if you want, in your pajamas, laying down on the couch, sitting on your phone. If you're in real life, you don't get that. You don't get to do that. Now, you don't have the opportunity, and so it's problematic. You don't get that tarbiyah. You don't get that sweetness. It's definitely, you don't get that sweetness in the masjid with the ulama, or even in university, because even in my short stints in university with the ulama, there in front of you, at least there's the adab, there's the ihtiram, there's the tawqir, there's the holding the sheikh, the teacher in high regard, and you have to be on your best behavior. You have to sit a certain way, talk a certain way, act a certain way. Behind the screen, you don't have that. So that's one of the biggest things I found. And also because in the masjid, as we said, the sheikh has time. He's not saying it's only a 10-week course. He's not saying that. He's got time to, if he wants to finish in 10 weeks or wants to finish in the whole year, he's got the option. So there's a real emphasis on the student's understanding. Whereas in the university, you've got a time limit. I've got a massive 400-page book that I need to summarize. So sometimes it's just information. There's information being given out, information being given out. And at the end, as long as you passed, well, alhamdulillah, you passed. There isn't that focus. Of course, the teachers want it, but there isn't a need for all the teachers, all the students to really have understood the subject, which is, I think, a sad part.
Interesting, Barakallah Fik. Now, I remember, since you brought it up, the the adab you have in the majlis there. Remember, I think it was in Mecca or Medina, the way you sit, all the other students, if you sit in the wrong manner, the students eyeball you out and they look at you a certain way. And I remember, I think it was in Medina after Fajr, I think it was a tafsir class, and someone was sitting the wrong way. Basically, the whole 50 to 100 students, they were all just looking at him. And then he sort of figured it out, and he said, you know what, I better change the way I'm sitting. So you learn the, adab like that, adab al-majlis, and the way you ask questions to the sheikh, and it's really it's quite different, and you miss out on that when you're actually online.
A lot of students that don't realize the importance of having that murabbi there, and we've spoken about this so much, over our time in Albayan, alhamdulillah. And even on the program, this particular program, we spoke about it so much that you are not going to reach those high levels unless you have someone helping you there.
100%.
You're not going to be able to replicate a person in real life who's been there, done that, has the knowledge, has the experience, has that wisdom, who's taking you and guiding you through the proper way through knowledge and how to become, inshallah, a great da'i, a great student of knowledge, a great sheikh, inshallah, through a computer screen. You're not going to get that. I also study with mashayikh, like a normal studies. Okay, we have our own book. Just like he'll teach me in the masjid, he's teaching me online. And even the same mashayikh who I've studied with them in real life and I studied them online, it's still not the same. Because again, in real life, there's time, there's connection. There's the way that they see. Sometimes a sheikh might grab you by the hand, just a little soft touch. He might grab you by the hand and he says, Nassim, just be careful how you say that. I didn't say anything haram, but he's just worried that maybe the way I said something, it might in future offend someone, or it might get me into trouble, or it might lead to something bad. On the screen, you don't get that. You don't get that soft touch. You don't see the sincerity in the person's face. You don't feel that nur. Again, you could be in your pajamas, and if it's not if the cameras aren't on, which the majority of the time they're not, You could be in your pajamas, sitting and learning. So you're not going to have that, that awe for knowledge. And it's something that we always need to remind ourselves that we need to have this constant connection with the mashaykh, even if you're studying online. And there are some brothers that, mashallah, they're doing the same university as myself. They're in the same university, but they're doing the books and the courses with the mashaykh here. So we have some brothers
Excellent.
who, even though they've got the online learning component, they've still got that tarbiyah from the mashaykh here. And you find that, tabarakallah, even them with that small time they spend with the mashaykh here, that weekly connection, you find them different to another student who all of his studies have been done online. And I'll remind the brothers and sisters, it's usually not in the short term that you see major differences. Like if you look at, for example, 100-meter sprint, okay? Over the 100 meters, at the beginning, there isn't that much of a difference. They're very close. But as time goes on, you start to see the gaps between the people at the front and the people at the back. It starts to really expand and broaden. And this is very similar, if not much worse, when it comes to students of knowledge who have that tarbiyah and who don't. At the beginning, when things are normal, things are hunky dory, things are nice, there's no problem. Everyone's very close. But then, when time goes on and problems become bigger, like you become a bigger da'i, and now you have bigger problems to face, you start to really see the difference between the da'i who's got a murabbi, who's got someone to go back to for advice, he's got someone who's taught him the ropes, and between someone who's just trying to figure out himself. And we've spoken about this previously about whims and desires and my opinion and your opinion and what shall listen to you, etc., etc., etc. And so you find this very vast difference at the when as time goes on, and that's a very unfortunate reality which we constantly are going. So if you're studying online, that's one of the major differences which you have to actually be mindful of and watch out for.
Now, Sheikh Nassim, as you mentioned, Barakallah Fik, your journey is still continuing, and inshallah you'll graduate soon. What's the, because we have to wrap up, what's the final advice or the concluding advice tonight for the one who wants to get overseas, but he can't? Should he study online? Should he try online with some mashayikh here? What should he or she do?
My advice is to first ask, what is your goal? And we spoke about this previously also. What is your destination? Once you know your destination, you know your direction, inshallah. What is that you want to achieve? If you just want to understand the ABCs of Islam, like literally the ABCs, then, alhamdulillah, there are plenty of mashayikh here that you can really benefit from in the English language, no problem. If you want to go above, a level above, where you actually want to, be at least a decent student of knowledge, and that's really your goal, on top of studying the ABCs, on top of that, you need to really be focusing on the Arabic language, because you're only going to get so far in the English language. You want to be able to open up those doors to ascend, you need the Arabic language. So whether you're studying with people in places here, or you're studying with people online overseas, or you're blessed with the opportunity to actually go overseas and study, which is what is highly recommended, extremely recommended, then that's what you need to do. Because once you have the Arabic language, a decent understanding of the Arabic language, which we said is going to be at least one solid year, at least. That's like a bare minimum. One solid year, inshallah. And you're going to continue Arabic after that, obviously, but just not at that, full-time, on a full-time basis, possibly, depending on your level after that year. You can now start to poke into other things. You can start to, have more private lessons with mashayikh. You can, stick to certain courses online. You can, go into certain programs like Azad or Nama, some other programs that are out there. And then obviously, on top of that, you can, inshallah, enroll in universities, as many brothers have, and alhamdulillah, many brothers have benefited.
Jazakallah khairan, the Sheikh Nassim. Any final comments for tonight, since we have you here?
Studying online, it has a lot of benefits, but for me personally, if I didn't have the background that I had, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, with Islamic knowledge, I don't think I would have even passed my subjects in the university. So alhamdulillah, for me, it was much easier because I was in da'wah and other studies and a whole bunch of things, and studying at the same time online. if I didn't have that background in Islamic knowledge, alhamdulillah, that I had, it wouldn't have been as easy as it was for me to get to the studies where I am. Some brothers really struggled with this, and so again, if you are even thinking about studying online, you need to really say, okay, what do I want to achieve? I'll be honest, for me, I needed to, because alhamdulillah, I had years of Islamic studies knowledge already there, but I didn't have anything to show for it academically on paper. And I needed that in order to be able to get into master programs, inshallah. So I knew, okay, my goal is I need to pass these subjects in order for me to go on to the masters, inshallah, and have a little bit more specialized things to study. But if I didn't have that, I would have really struggled. So you need to, before you dive into anything, really ask yourself, what is it that I want, and where is most appropriate for me? And you ask people for advice, and inshallah they'll guide you in that direction. Because if I was always failing those subjects, or if I had to do 3-4 hours just on uni a day, I probably wouldn't have been able to continue. So if I wouldn't want another person to try that and then say, you know what, this is too hard, and then leave it altogether. Khutbah, step by step, and inshallah azza wa jal, you'll be able to build yourself, whether it's online or it's in person. But if you can get in person, then don't bother with online. If you need to go online, as many people do, then seek advice on where to go and what level you should be on, and how to build yourself properly, inshallah. And if you're there, dedicate, because there was a lot of benefit. There was a lot of benefit, alhamdulillah, through the studies, through the books. I could have benefited much more if I didn't have that background knowledge, and I actually had to put in a lot more effort into the studies. I know myself I could have benefited a lot more, because I've had an oversight, at least an overview of the subjects in the text that were taught, and they have a lot of benefit in it. And the students that I know that really put a lot of effort in, they really benefited from what they took. So there is a lot of opportunity and a lot of knowledge to learn, but you just need to decide, where am I and where am I heading, and seek advice of people, and inshallah azza wa jal, you come up with the best outcome.
Jazakallah khairan, the Sheikh Nassim, for being with us tonight. I'd like to thank all our viewers and listeners for tuning in tonight. Don't forget to subscribe to the Albayan Radio YouTube channel, Albayan Radio Australia, and inshallah Sheikh Nassim will be with us next week at the same time, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Until then, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.